June 17, 2:40 a.m. 30,000 feet above the Persian Gulf. The cockpit lights glow dim red inside the long, narrow flight deck of a B-52 Stratofortress. 8 engines hum in a steady, bone-deep vibration. Outside the windshield, the night is black and endless, no horizon, no stars, just darkness stitched together by faint instrument reflections. The pilot checks the radar sweep again. Nothing threatening. Nothing dramatic. Just presence. Below them, the Gulf waters are ink-dark. Tankers crawl along invisible shipping lanes. Farther north, beyond the curve of the earth, lies Tehran, quiet, sleeping, and officially unimpressed. The bomber isn't armed for war tonight. Not in the way people imagine. But it doesn't need to be. It is a message. And messages, when delivered at 30,000 feet, don't knock. They linger. Inside the aircraft, the crew moves with practiced calm. The electronic warfare officer scans for signals. The navigator studies digital maps. The co-pilot glances at fuel data. This aircraft first flew when Dwight D. Eisenhower was in the White House. And yet here it is, still relevant. Still feared. Still flying. Hours later, as dawn begins to stain the eastern sky, the bomber turns west and disappears. On Iranian state television that evening, the coverage is brief. Clinical. Routine American posturing. Symbolic. Psychological theater. Nothing more. But 2 nights later, the radar operators along Iran's southern perimeter see it again. And then again. And again. The same long radar signature. The same high-altitude orbit patterns. The same deliberate track across international airspace, always just far enough to remain legal, but close enough to be unmistakable. This isn't a single flyover. It's a rhythm. Inside command centers in Tehran, officers begin noticing the timing. The pattern spacing. The altitude consistency. You can dismiss a gesture. But repetition? Repetition feels different. Each pass forces air defense crews to power up tracking systems. To calculate response times. To rehearse engagement protocols they hope never to execute. Every radar lock is logged. Every radio frequency monitored. And with every return flight, one question grows heavier. Is this just theater, or preparation? The United States Air Force releases minimal statements. Regional stability operations. Commitment to allies. Freedom of navigation. Measured words. But the aircraft themselves say something else. A B-52 doesn't deploy casually. It requires tankers, logistics chains, forward basing rights, diplomatic clearance corridors. It is not agile like a fighter jet. It is deliberate. Which means if it's here, someone planned it carefully. And in Tehran, that realization begins to settle like dust after an explosion. Not panic. Not yet. But attention. Because the bombers are not just flying past. They are learning the sky. Mapping radar envelopes. Testing response times. Measuring silence. At 3:12 a.m. On the 4th night, one Iranian radar controller notices something subtle. The bomber adjusted its route by 15 miles compared to its previous orbit. Why? Weather? Or calibration? It's a small deviation. But small deviations are how strategy reveals itself. In Washington, planners review satellite imagery and signal intercepts. They watch for reaction patterns. They analyze how quickly Iran powers up specific radar arrays. Which frequencies spike first? Which go quiet? The flyovers are not simply about intimidation. They are data collection missions disguised as routine patrols. And Tehran's early dismissal? That may have just handed over valuable information. Still, state television continues its tone of indifference. Commentators speak confidently about defensive readiness, about sovereignty, about resilience. But resilience requires certainty. And certainty fades when the shadow keeps coming back. By the seventh night, Iranian air defense commanders are no longer calling it symbolic. They are calling it sustained presence. And sustained presence means capability. Because a B-52 does not need to cross a border to matter. It carries range measured in continents, payload measured in devastation, history measured in wars. And now it circles, patient, unblinking, methodical. The Gulf remains quiet. But quiet, in military terms, can mean many things. It can mean calm. Or it can mean calculation. As dawn breaks again over the water, the bomber banks westward, vanishing into pale light. Back in Tehran, a senior commander studies the latest radar log, tapping his pen against the desk. "They're not testing our airspace," he says softly. "They're testing us." And somewhere far above the Gulf, another B-52 is already inbound. June 23, 11:18 p.m. Underground Command Complex, Northern Tehran. The fluorescent lights buzz faintly above a long steel table covered in radar printouts. The air smells of dust, electronics, and burnt coffee. On the wall, a digital display projects a moving map of the Persian Gulf, thin green arcs pulsing outward from coastal radar stations. Another contact appears. High altitude. Heavy signature. Unmistakable. A colonel from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps leans closer to the screen. He doesn't need confirmation. He already knows what it is. Track only, he orders. No illumination. No targeting radar. No missile batteries active. Not yet. Because escalation is a ladder, and tonight, neither side wants to step on the wrong rung. The radar return holds steady at over 30,000 feet. Speed consistent. Course deliberate. Not probing wildly. Not erratic. Disciplined. This is not a nervous pilot flying too close to a border. This is strategic choreography. Across the room, a signals officer reports encrypted chatter consistent with aerial refueling. Tankers somewhere beyond the horizon. The bomber is not alone. It never is. You can almost feel the shift in the room. A week ago, these flights were brushed aside as predictable American signaling. Now they are something else, persistent, calculated, studying. The colonel gestures to overlay previous flight paths. Thin white lines crisscross the Gulf on the screen, each arc nearly identical, but not quite. Subtle shifts. Measured variations. Each new orbit inches closer to a different radar envelope. Each return forces a different unit to respond. "They're mapping us," someone says quietly. No one argues. High above, inside the B-52 Stratofortress, the crew operates in calm silence. The navigator updates coordinates while the electronic warfare officer listens to the electromagnetic spectrum, the invisible battlefield below. Every time a radar locks on, even briefly, it leaves a fingerprint. Frequency. Strength. Response time. And those fingerprints are being recorded. Back in Tehran, a general enters the room. Older. Measured. A veteran of a different era. He studies the pattern without speaking. "Has Washington said anything new?" he asks. A staff officer shakes his head. Public statements remain restrained. Commitment to regional partners. Stability. Deterrence. Deterrence. It's a word both sides understand. Because deterrence is not about firing weapons. It's about proving you can. The general turns to a wall map marked with colored pins, missile sites, radar arrays, command nodes. The United States has bases across the region, Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE. Naval assets in the Gulf. Carriers in nearby waters. But this? This is different. A B-52 carries gravity in its silhouette. It is not agile like a fighter jet. It does not scramble. It arrives slowly, confidently, like a clock tower striking midnight. And it keeps striking. On Iranian state television, analysts still project calm confidence. They describe the flights as routine, predictable. They speak of defensive depth and indigenous missile capabilities. But inside the underground complex, language is changing. They are no longer asking why the bombers are here. They are asking what comes after. Because sustained bomber presence is rarely the final move. It is either a warning, or a prelude. At 12:02 a.m., the radar track shifts again. The aircraft adjusts altitude slightly, dipping just enough to test coverage at a lower band. The room stiffens. It's subtle. But intentional. The colonel orders a passive countermeasure test, electronic monitoring only. No visible reaction. Minutes later, the bomber resumes its previous altitude. A test completed. Data collected. And then, as dawn begins to break over the Zagros Mountains, the contact turns west and fades. Silence returns to the room. But the silence is heavier now. The general folds his hands behind his back. How many flights in total? 7.